Mr. Austin, you discussed yesterday, as I recall, not wanting to really tell the truth until you had an attorney. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir. That's what was advised to me as soon as I met with my attorney.
And when did you first meet with your attorney?
In October, sometime in November.
Were you in Vancouver or were you in Los Angeles?
I was in Los Angeles.
Well, you had an attorney in Vancouver too, didn't you?
Who advised me that extradition was probably better than waiting to come to court.
All right, but that attorney was appointed for you up there?
Yes, sir.
Did you talk to the attorney at all as to whether or not you should talk to the authorities up in Vancouver and answer their questions?
The attorney in Vancouver advised that I waive extradition and say, go ahead and say you're ready to come. And that's what happened.
Well, I understand that, but you were interviewed several times up in Vancouver.
Several.
Right? You talked to Miss Stagel and the two officers behind me. They interviewed you up in Vancouver, right?
On the 2nd of October, yes.
Yes. And you had conversations with the Perkins individual in the cell for about 5 or 6 hours. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
And you didn't tell the truth to any of them, right? About Ms. Sementilli being involved in anything.
I didn't tell them everything, no.
Well, the one thing you left out was Ms. Sementilli, correct?
Yes.
That's the only thing you left out, right?
I left out a lot of details to them.
Well, but you told them up there that you had killed Mr. Sementilli, as you put it, you called him, right?
That's what I told them.
That you had stabbed him, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You confessed to the murder, correct?
I confessed to being a part of it.
And you confessed to being part of it with Mr. Baker and Mr. Birdsong.
Yes.
So the only thing you left out was including Miss Sementilli. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Why did you just leave her out and tell them about Baker and Birdsong and yourself?
It wasn't until the detective took my DNA that, at that time, in my mind, they knew everything. So why even play with them?
Why even play with them?
That was my thought.
What do you mean by play with them?
There's no point in playing games with somebody who flew up from Los Angeles to pull me over and have me arrested on my way to work.
So you knew, whether it was DNA or anything else, that when they came all the way up to Vancouver to interview you, you knew they had you, right?
I knew they knew something.
What did you think they knew?
I don't know.
Well, they told you what they knew, right?
Pretty much.
And you told them, more important, what you did.
Yes.
So whatever they told you was enough to get you to say that you had stabbed and killed, along with Mr. Baker, Fabio Sementilli, an individual you never knew, you didn't even know his name, right?
Not at the time, no.
You didn't confess to them that you killed Fabio Sementilli when you were up in Vancouver?
I thought I told you yes earlier.
Told me what earlier?
Yes.
You did, right?
Yes, sir.
So you knew they had you on first-degree murder charges?
No.
What'd you think?
I thought they wanted to ask me some questions.
And why did you think they wanted to ask you some questions?
Well, I would imagine.
I want to know what you were thinking at the time, or imagining. Go on.
At the time, if you pull me over on my way to work, then 9 times out of 10, they probably saw my phone number with Mr. Baker's phone number. So I'm an honest guy. I had turned my life around. So why even bothered playing with them, their flight arrangements, the amount of time they took to come out here.
Exactly. And so you decided they got you. Why play around? They've got your phone records with Mr. Baker. You're going to tell them the truth, right?
Yes.
But one thing you didn't know if they had was any evidence tying you to Miss Sementilli.
I figured they probably combined everything. I just didn't tell them everything until I got an attorney present to advise me on the proper way to proceed.
Well, you asked for an attorney while you were up in Vancouver, didn't you?
I did.
There's a site here where it says, you're talking to the Perkins guy.
Objection, this is hearsay.
I haven't really heard the question. Were you going to bring in a statement?
Statement of Mr. Austin.
Can we approach him?
All right.
So when you were up in Vancouver, at one point, you said, I told him I have to get a different attorney. Remember that?
I remember saying that in the form of a question.
Okay. And you talked to an attorney up there, right, about extradition?
Yes, sir.
Objection, Vegas and time.
So ruled.
Okay. So my question to you is, they told you that they wanted to talk to you then, up in Vancouver, if you were willing to talk to them. And that's Ms. Stagel, Detective Byers, Detective Farrell. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
So you had a choice. Either talk to them or not talk to them, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you had already been talking to the Perkins individual and saying all sorts of things about what you did and so forth, and what you should do and whether you should get the and talk about Monica and all that. You'd already had those conversations with the Perkins individual, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But you didn't know the Perkins individual was working for the police and was going to tell them everything you said.
No, sir, I did not.
You didn't know that that was all tape recorded, so they would end up knowing everything you said, and we'd end up knowing it. You didn't know that either.
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. But you thought you had a choice, your own choice, whether to speak to the detectives and the DA, Ms. Stagel, or not. Right?
Yes.
And I read you a lot of quotes yesterday where you basically were saying, both to the Perkins guy and to the DAs, I got to get back and see my daughter. I got to get home and see my wife. That's the only way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to talk to you, right?
Yes, sir.
You even said, tell me what you need, right?
Yes, sir.
What did you mean by tell me what you need?
I don't know how else to say. Like, tell me what you need. You need me to stand on one foot? I'll stand on one foot.
Okay. Well, they didn't want you to stand on one foot, but they wanted you to give them evidence against Miss Sementilli, right?
They wanted to know the truth of what happened.
Okay. And did you tell them the whole truth as to what happened?
Not when I was in Washington.
Okay. But you did tell them about what you did and how you killed Fabio Sementilli, correct?
I did tell them my participation.
And you told them about Mr. Baker's participation, correct?
Yes, sir.
He got you into it, right?
Via defendant, yes.
Via the defendant.
Yes.
The defendant asked you to kill Fabio Sementilli?
Through Baker, yes.
That's what Baker told you, you say, right?
Yes.
And you told that to the police.
Yes.
You told the police and the detective up in Vancouver that Miss Sementilli was involved?
I don't think I told them that until I got here.
Okay. So that's my question. You asked them what they needed, right?
Yes, sir.
And you knew they needed Miss Sementilli. They, the bitch is the only one they don't got. She's going to trial. Baker's already been convicted, blah, 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 right?
Based on what the information they presented to me.
So you knew the only one they did not have any evidence against was Monica Sementilli.
I did not know that.
Assumes facts, not an evidence.
Sustained.
I was unaware of it.
Well, then you tell me, when you talked to them up in Vancouver, you told them that you killed Fabio Sementilli, correct?
Yes.
You told them that you did that because Mr. Baker asked you to do it, correct?
Yes.
You told them that Mr. Birdsong was involved, correct?
Yes.
But the whole time up in Vancouver, you never told them that Monica Sementilli told Mr. Baker to do it or had met with Mr. Baker or had anything to do with it. Isn't that right?
Yes.
In fact, you told them that you didn't even know you were going to kill him. The first thing you learned when you landed in L.A. was we're just going to rough him up a little bit.
Yes.
That was a lie.
Yes, it was.
Well, why did you tell them you were just going to rough him up a little bit and then tell them that you stabbed him in the neck?
Have you ever been pulled over with six people on your way to work, and then two detectives come talk to you?
I'm trying to remember. No, sir, I have not. But I'm just
Okay.
asking about what happened to you, and I'm talking about up in Seattle not being pulled over on the way to work. In Seattle, or Vancouver, I'm sorry, you had several detectives. These two gentlemen here, correct? Bias and Farrell.
Yes.
They didn't mistreat you, did they?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Well, you were there.
No.
They didn't drag you out of a car or anything.
No, they did not.
Miss Stagel didn't drag you out of a car or anything.
No, she did not.
Okay, they had you in a room, right?
Yes.
And they made it clear all they wanted was the truth, and they made it clear they needed evidence against Miss Sementilli. Right?
They didn't mention that. They said, we know what happened. We want to know what happened in between.
And when they said, we know what happened, you assumed they knew everything about the case, correct?
Yes, sir.
Including the involvement you're saying now and yesterday of Miss Sementilli.
Yes, sir.
So all you were doing up there was confirming to them what you thought they already knew.
Yes, sir.
And you did confirm to them what you thought they already knew, right?
Yes, sir.
You told them about flying down, correct?
Yes, sir.
First you lied and said it was for roughing up, but then you changed that, right?
Yes, sir.
And you told them it was a plan to kill him, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the plan was with Baker and Birdsong, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you went out and you bought, first you said one knife, then you said two knives. Did they buy one knife or two knives?
It's getting
Okay.
covered.
And you told them everything about the murder, including your guilt in first-degree murder by stabbing him in the neck, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you left one thing out with them.
I left a lot of things out with them.
You tell me what you left out with them.
I left out the day I landed. I left out.
I'm sorry, who, what?
I left out the day I landed. I left out
The
what
day
the plan.
you landed, you left out? You didn't tell them you flew down and then you went to the house and Baker told you that he was just going to rough him up? You told him that.
Yes, I did.
You told him that Baker paid for the ticket, correct?
I did.
You told me you were coming down the day before for your birthday?
After.
What'd you leave out that was important?
I left out the night that we got there, that he was supposed to go to the store and get some food.
Okay,
I left out.
hold on 1 second, please. Glad you brought that up. When you were talking to the detectives up there and even to the Perkins guy, did you ever mention that what you're saying now, that the night before you went out there with Baker to try to kill him?
No, I did not.
And why not?
Again, I didn't have an attorney present to advise me on proper counsel.
Okay, and then when you got an attorney down here in Los Angeles, then you told him for the first time that you had been brought out there the night before, right?
I told him the second time he met with me, everything.
The second time he met with you. You didn't tell him the first time.
Not in like complete full detail.
Did you lie to him the first time?
Didn't tell him anything the first time, so I didn't lie to him.
Well, eventually you ended up telling the prosecution exactly what they wanted to hear. Isn't that true?
The truth?
You told them that for the first time up here that Monica Sementilli was involved some way in the murder, correct?
Yes, sir.
Even though you had only met her at the gym and at the LA Fitness, correct?
Yes, sir.
Even though you had never spoken to her other than to say hello, correct?
Yes, sir.
Even though you were never looking at the phone or any text messages when Mr. Baker was talking, correct?
How do you mean?
You never saw him talk to Monica Sementilli where you heard her voice or you saw text messages.
That is correct.
So what you told them was that Mr. Baker had gone into another room, sometimes was talking and came out and said to you, she wants him dead. She's giving me information. She's telling me what she wants. That's what you told them
That's what I told him.
for the first time.
Yes, sir.
That you had never told them in Vancouver to the Perkins guy or to the officers there.
That is correct.
And the reason you told them that was if you did not tell them that, and you knew this, you were not going to get a deal. Isn't that right?
No, that is not right.
Well, you hadn't gotten a deal yet before you brought in Miss Sementilli, had you?
No, I did not.
It was only after you mentioned Miss Sementilli that the district attorney's office said, we'll get back to you. And then a few days or whatever, they came back to you through your attorney, and then they made you this offer.
Wasn't a guarantee that I was going to get one at all.
No, it wasn't a guarantee, depending on what you said. Right?
Yes.
And you knew at that time, whether it was from your attorney or anywhere else, you knew you had to tell them that Monica Sementilli was involved in some way in order for you to get your deal. Isn't that right?
I knew I had to tell them the truth, sir.
Okay. And you're saying that's the truth now.
That is the truth.
And you, for the first time, said that you went out the night before to kill Fabio, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, why didn't you tell them that in Vancouver or to the Perkins guy? Didn't involve her.
I did not have an attorney present to tell them everything.
So you told them that you stabbed him and you killed him, but you didn't tell them you went out the night before and did nothing.
That is correct.
Why would you leave that out?
I did not have an attorney present for proper counsel.
Did you have an attorney present up there when you confessed to first-degree murder?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence.
Sustained.
And a legal conclusion.
That's sustained.
Did you have an attorney up there when you confessed to stabbing Fabio Sementilli in the neck and killing him?
No, I did not.
Why did you tell him that without an attorney?
All the years I spent working with high-risk youth, I always told them, I was like, I can't ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. And they got to stand in it. And so that is what I did. I stood in what I did. And I let the chips fall wherever they may.
You told the truth.
I told a partial truth.
Well, you didn't have an attorney with you, right?
Objection asked and answered.
Yes, it is going over.
So you told them a partial truth, which was you committed murder by stabbing somebody in the neck, correct?
Objection asked and answered.
I'll allow this question.
Yes.
And the partial you left out was any evidence involving Monica Sementilli, isn't that
Objection
right?
asked and answered.
Cumulative. Sustained.
Okay. The whole time you were up in Vancouver without an attorney, and you're saying you told them the partial truth. In other words, you left out Miss Sementilli, correct?
Yes.
You told them that you only, and Baker told you you were only going up there to rough him up. And he told you that the day you landed at the airport and drove over to the Sementilli house, correct?
Objection misstates the testimony.
So early.
Can you ask that again, please?
You landed in Los Angeles the day before the murder, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Baker at some point drove you up to the house where Mr. Sementilli, you were told, was home alone, correct?
Objection vague as his time.
So early.
When I landed,
Was it that day or the next day?
it was the next day.
Okay. Between the time you landed and the next day, did he change anything about you were going to kill Mr. Sementilli?
Objection vague.
So early.
What do you mean?
The next day, did you go to the house with him
I did.
and you put you in the trunk and you had knives and all of that, correct?
Yes, sir.
And why did you go there that night, as far as you knew, that day?
Objection cumulative.
I'll allow this.
With all the detail that I knew already, Baker said, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Trust me. Just go with me and I'll take care of everything.
Okay.
So I went with him.
But you left something out, what Baker told you, didn't you?
I left a lot out what Baker told me. Baker also told me not to mention her.
Okay, not to mention her, right? But he also told you that you were just going up there with him to rough him up because she'd been mistreated by her husband, correct?
He told me that he was abusive.
He was abusive, and you were going there to rough him up. That's what you told the detectives up in Vancouver, and you told the Perkins guy, correct?
That is correct.
Was that the truth?
No, it was not.
Why did you lie about that?
Because I did not have an attorney present to give me proper counsel. And I didn't know them to tell him anything in the cell.
And then you went on and told them that you stabbed him in the neck.
After I talked to the detectives.
Did you change it and tell them it wasn't just to rough him up, it was to kill him?
I remember telling him it was to rough him up, yes.
Well, how did it get from roughing him up to killing him? Did he resist in any way?
Who?
Mr. Sementilli.
A
Do you
little.
think-
I think a little, yeah.
Oh, how did he?
But Baker started stabbing him already, so.
How did he defend himself? You remember?
I remember he was sitting in a chair.
Okay. And?
Baker had already covered his mouth and pinned him down to the chair.
He had what?
Baker had already covered his mouth and pinned him to the chair, and I had already covered his eyes, and Baker had started stabbing, so he didn't have a chance to really defend himself. It
So-
happened really fast.
1, 2, 3, boom, you got in there, right? He wanted it fast, Baker.
Yes,
And 1, 2, 3, you got into the porch, right?
about that, yeah. It was quick. It was really fast.
Really fast. But it wasn't roughing him up, it was killing him.
Yes, sir.
So my only question to you is, if you admitted killing him, why did you tell the officers and the district attorney in Vancouver that Baker told you the day you landed that you were only there to rough him up?
Because I did not have an attorney present to advise me proper counsel on what to say. I knew they knew something, but I gave them partial truth.
You didn't have a proper counsel to tell you what to say.
To advise me.
And eventually you found out what to say when you came to Los Angeles, didn't you?
Objection argumentative.
Sustained.
And
Wow.
eventually you came to Los Angeles, you got your attorney, and then you added that Monica Sementilli knew all about this because that's what Baker told you.
My attorney talked to me with his with a partner and said, "You cannot BS me. You need to tell me everything."
Okay.
And I asked and confirmed, like, "So are you my actual attorney?"
Why'd
Are
you
you
want
sure?
to know if he was your...
Objection, can you finish this?
You may finish your statement, sir.
I wanted to know. I asked him to confirm, "Are you my actual attorney, or am I going to get a new one?" Because I had met a different attorney prior, so I didn't know who to tell anything. He said, "I am assigned to you. You are my attorney," and I started telling him everything.
And what was the purpose of your talking to the police and to the DA here in Los Angeles at all? You'd already confessed to them in Vancouver, right?
My attorney advised me what a proper meeting was, and he told me I cannot hold back anything.
And you had already said to the Perkins guy and to the DA up north, in Vancouver, "I'll give them whatever they want. What do you need? What do you need?" Remember saying that?
I do.
Was that the truth? You would give them whatever they wanted so you could go see your wife and kid again?
Yeah.
Okay. So you knew the proffer was your chance to tell them what they needed so you could get your deal. Isn't that right?
How do you mean?
I mean, you didn't have a deal. They didn't say we're going to give you a deal if you just tell us what you told us in Vancouver, where you confessed to the murder.
No.
You knew what the deal had to be is you had to give them Monica Sementilli. Isn't that right?
I was advised to tell them the whole truth. Don't hold anything back.
And you were told that if you didn't add Monica Sementilli to what you told them, there would be no deal. Isn't that right?
That is not what I was told.
Well, that's the only thing you changed, right?
That's what I added.
That's what you added. So why didn't you just say, hey, it's what I told you up in Seattle. We went there, we were going to rough him up, got out of hand, I killed him, I stabbed him. That was the end of it. Why didn't you just say that?
Objection, Keelan.
It is, as well as argumentative.
All right. Mr. Austin, let
Yes,
me
sir.
go back to a few things that shed some light on this, I believe. When you spoke to the district attorney up here in Los Angeles, at one point you were asked, might there have been other people on these calls when you guys were having these conversations 4 to 5 months before the murder? Remember being asked that by Ms. Silverman?
Yes, sir.
So she was asking you if someone else besides Baker and Birdsong were in on the calls, right?
Yes, sir.
And you said, possibly I did. Remember?
Yes, sir.
So when she asked you if there are other people on these calls, you said, possibly.
Yes, sir.
You didn't say Miss Sementilli was on the call then, did you?
No, I did not.
And then the question was, I'm sorry, you did what? And your answer was, more, dash, dash. I did a lot of tuning out. What do you mean by that, a lot of tuning out?
When they started talking, I was either cleaning, watching TV, walking around.
So you were basically saying when they were asking you who else was on these calls, you were basically saying, I don't know, I was tuning out, right?
When I was asked were there other people on the calls, and I said possibly, that was the truth. It could have been more people on the call. I wouldn't have known if they don't say anything.
And Miss Stagel said, yeah, and then Miss Silverman said, that's not going to fly. Remember that?
Yes.
Well, what do you think she meant when she said, that's not going to fly?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Well, you took that to mean you better remember more than just I kind of tuned out.
Objection, argument.
And after you were told that's not going to fly, then you started telling him that Monica Sementilli was in on the calls because that's what Baker told you, right?
Yes.
Before then, you hadn't told him that, had you?
I hadn't told them much of anything.
Well, you started off with you didn't remember much because you were tuning out. And then you changed that to Monica Sementilli. You remember that? I'll move on, Your Honor. Now, at some point, you were also advised by the prosecution after you made some statement not involving Miss Sementilli. Ms. Stagel said, I don't disbelieve you. I don't think anyone does. There's just, there's a lot of factors. We're set to go to trial, and it's Monica. And it's like we're putting it all together, and there's, you added some information that we may know, but we didn't know for sure. So it's, I see the value that you've added. Let me put it that way.
Objection to hearsay.
Explains to witness to subsequent conduct. It's overruled.
You've added value to the case as an overall and putting the case, as far as the whole picture. So you've been cooperative. You've added value. That goes a long way. Again, not a promise, but it means something. Every case I've done, the detectives have done is different. Every single one is different. There is when you say, what have you seen? Well, I haven't seen what. How you portrayed right now and the remorse you've shown. I haven't seen that a lot, but again, every single case is different. And you've helped us to define more or less, your thoughts, your role, so we can see where you're coming from. So we're just trying to get the truth in what happened. And you said, I'm telling you the truth. And she said, no, I believe you. I believe you. You remember being told that?
Yes, sir.
And because we know we've got one other person to try, and that's Monica, we know there wouldn't be you without Monica. What did you think that meant? There wouldn't be you without Monica.
I let her finish her statement.
Pardon?
I let her finish her statement.
All right. So we believe that you got bought into this. We do believe you. I think everyone believes that this isn't what you intended, long time before, if that's what you're saying. But at some point, you got brought into the loop. I think we just need an understanding and the truth and what you've already told the detectives about your role. Remember that?
Yes.
But what you had told the detectives about your role already didn't involve Miss Sementilli, right?
No.
It did not, correct?
What I told the detectives, I didn't tell them everything.
And after talking to the prosecutors here, you decided, for whatever reason, if you didn't add Miss Sementilli, you were not going to get your deal.
I decided to tell them the truth of what I knew.
But you knew if you did not add Miss Sementilli, there was no deal. You knew that, didn't you? Yes or no?
I decided to tell them the truth of what I knew.
After you had not told the truth any time before.
I hadn't told anybody before.